Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for today's Career Day event. My name is Haven Spanier, and I'm the Director of Student and Young Alumni Engagement at the Alumni Association here. We're so excited to bring you all this Career Day event today in partnership with the Career Center. Before I introduce our host, I do want to remind you all that she would love to hear your questions throughout the event. So if you don't know how to type a question into the chat feature, there should be a little chat button across the bottom of your screen. So if you click that, it'll pull up the chat. You can type any questions you have throughout the event in that chat feature, and we will do our best to get to all of those today. But without further ado, I'd love to introduce today's host. Molly Hall is the coverage sales leader for the U.S. industrial market at IBM. She previously worked as a business development executive on the strategic services team in the industrial market. Prior to joining IBM, Molly was an attorney for the Department of Commerce, where she was responsible for recruiting companies from around the world to the United States and streamlining their investment projects to create jobs and bring investments to the country. Molly holds a bachelor's degree and a Juris Doctorate from the University of South Carolina, graduating in 2012 and 2015 respectively. She's an avid South Carolina Gamecock fan and enjoys traveling and photography. She lives in her hometown of Charleston, South Carolina with her husband, Logan, who is also a graduate of the University of South Carolina. So welcome, Molly. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, Haven, thanks for having me, and hi, everybody on the call. Very excited to talk to you today. I'll kind of explain my role and what it means as we get into this. I know it's kind of confusing to be told that I'm a coverage sales leader. Nobody knows what that means. So we can go to the first slide, Haven. So I really just want to start by talking about what corporate America is, because a lot of people hear that, you hear it all the time, but people don't really know what it means. It's not just necessarily these large companies that are in the Fortune 500 or Fortune 1000 rankings. It can be any organization really that's operating on a profit. So any organization that's filed for profit is technically corporate America. But what people really refer to when they're saying that is kind of hierarchy structures, usually publicly traded, but sometimes private. They have lots of capital and there's lots of red tape and bureaucracy. So that's really what people mean when they say corporate America. Big business, big organizations, lots of money involved, and usually lots of people. On the screen are just some very well-known companies that you think of when you think of corporate America. All of these companies are publicly traded. All of these companies have tens of thousands of employees, and all of these companies have global offices all over the world. Two of these companies on here are two of the most recognized brands in the world, Coca-Cola and Starbucks. So, a brand, a logo is not quite the same thing, but we'll get into that as well. These are just some examples of companies that I think really hone in on the term corporate America when people are talking about corporate America. Okay, we can go to the next slide. So with any big company or any company that operates for profit, it's super competitive. And so there's obviously advantages and disadvantages. So we'll start with the advantages, the good stuff. So usually there's some kind of retirement plan. There's some kind of match, a percentage of your salary that the company will match into a retirement or an investment account. So it doesn't have to be a 401k, it could be a Roth, IRA, whatever. They explain all that to you when you join, or you can talk to a financial advisor about what kind of retirement accounts you want out of your company. But that's a huge advantage of corporate America. Usually the retirement benefits are really good. And at a young age, it's important to start saving for it because that money will compound over time. So it sets you up for a good future. And just going off of that, along with the retirement benefits, there's always usually pretty good healthcare benefits. And I used to work in government. I used to work for a government entity, and everybody says, oh, the government healthcare benefits are so great. Well, they suck compared to corporate America. So I didn't know that. I just was under the impression that government jobs were so great. But I came to IBM and realized really quick that the benefits are way better. For example, the parental leave policies are way better at IBM. We get 10 months fully paid maternity leave. At my government job, I got 6 weeks, and then I had to take another 10 weeks short-term disability. So IBM will pay me for 10 full months to take off as a new mother, and my government job would only pay me for 6 weeks. Also at IBM, and I know a lot of other big companies as well, they're starting to help pay for fertility treatments. So that's really important if you want to have a family. They pay for surrogacy, adoption, IVF, things like that. These are all questions that you should definitely be asking your companies what their policies are around parental leave. And for any men out there, a lot of the corporations now have 8-10 week paternal leave benefits for men, for new fathers. So definitely those are things that you want to ask when you're in a job interview, because it really can affect your work-life balance. Another advantage is that there's usually a clear path to leadership. So like I was saying earlier with hierarchy and structures, usually there's, a seller, a manager, a director, a general manager, a vice president. Every company is different, but I would say in corporate America, everything is so structured and organized that you know exactly what level you want to go to next. And the hierarchy is very clear. So when I sign on every day, for example, it has on my homepage at IBM, my reporting manager, who I report to, and then all the way leading up to the CEO of how I get to the CEO, where my job is, and every manager above me to the CEO. So it's very clear. You always kind of know what maybe you're going to work for next, or maybe you're happy where you are, those kind of things. So along with benefits, I think corporate America pays better. Clearly, it's pretty well known that you can make a lot of money. There's really good incentives and bonuses. Now that really just depends on your job role. So I don't want to say it's necessarily better for every role, but I think there are really good incentive plans and bonus plans and things like that if you are at a bigger company, because they can afford it. You also can gain a much larger professional network. So for example, my company has 400,000 employees. So, your professional network just quadruples like your first week of work, and people leave and they go to competing companies and they take new jobs. And so your network kind of outside where you're working really grows, and you get to know people at lots of different companies, and you work with people a lot of different companies, like your clients, and just other vendors you may work with. So your professional network kind of just exponentially can grow over time, because larger companies work and have partnerships with other large companies, et cetera, et cetera. It's also a really good resume builder. So if you're young and you want to get into it, or maybe you just got your MBA, or maybe you just graduated undergrad, or you're at any point in your career really, but you want to go work at a big name company, it's great for a resume. So if you can make it at a corporate company for, 5-10 years, it looks really good if you want to go apply elsewhere and maybe have a better balance in your life. It's always nice to have a very recognizable company name there. It says a lot about you that you were able to get a job there. So, and not only get a job there, but be able to stay there and grow and have multiple roles. So it's definitely a resume builder. And then once again, this depends on your role, but a lot of my friends that also work at larger companies, there's lots of travel benefits. So my company partners with Marriott, Hilton, Delta, American Airlines. So I have like free access to like the Delta Sky Club, and I get immediate, gold medallion membership and Delta Airlines. So things like that are really cool, because it makes traveling so much better. And then if you travel a lot for work, sometimes you get a lot of points and you can take a lot of free vacations with your friends or family. So there can be travel benefits based on your role or what company you're at. So along with advantages, there's obviously going to be disadvantages. there's much longer hours, especially now with work from home. And I'm sure a lot of other people outside of corporate America are also feeling this. This isn't unique to us, but for me, there's like no time off now. So my bosses feel like they can call me whenever they want because I'm just at home, right? There's no to and from the office. I used to travel Monday through Thursday. Now I never travel. I'm just home. So I get calls at all hours. And not my main manager, but my next step manager is in Germany. She got stuck over there during COVID and she hasn't been able to get back. So we have really odd times for our calls now because she's 5.5, 6 hours ahead. So there's just really no boundaries now with work from home. So there's burnout involved because you're just working weekends and all the time because, well, there's nothing really else to do during COVID. So I've just been working a lot and sometimes 100-hour work weeks. So there can definitely be burnout. There's also a lot of internal politics and infighting. So just like I was talking about the hierarchy structures, it's really competitive. Everybody wants to get, to a senior vice president role. That's where a lot of the big money is. You can retire early. It's a lot of work to get there and it's very competitive and there are a lot of politics involved. So that can be really hard to navigate and to understand. I think the best way to deal with any of that is obviously just to be honest and stay out of it. But sometimes you can't always help those things. So that's definitely a disadvantage. And then just building off of that, one manager at a big company can make your life horrible. If you have a really tough manager that expects a lot out of you and doesn't respect your time outside the office and calls you all the time, it can make your life miserable, right? Everybody knows that. Everybody's had a bad job or experienced something at work that made it miserable to go. So having that person that you're responsible to every day being really difficult or you don't gel, that can make things rough. And in corporate America, the reason why this is a disadvantage is sometimes you don't always control that. So if somebody gets promoted into a vice president role and they're the new leader for North America, everybody reports into them. You really have no say. It's not like you can just jump ship and go work for somebody else. It's really hard to do that. So like I said, one bad manager or leader can really make things tough. And then obviously performance based. So if you don't get results, you're probably going to get fired. That's also not unique to corporate America, right? If you're not doing a good job, they're probably going to place you somewhere else or, ask you to leave or give you notice, something like that. I know it's a little bit more cutthroat though. It can be really hard to fire somebody like at my old job and when I was in government, you have to have a really good reason to fire somebody because there's a lot of ways employees can sue. So for like wrongful termination in corporate America, it's a lot easier to fire somebody. So performance-based can be stressful, right? So that's a disadvantage. And then just as an advantage, being able to travel and go to new places, it can also be a disadvantage because you can miss things in your family and your friends' lives that you wish you could be at, but you have to travel for work. So like when I was gone Monday through Thursday, I missed so much, but I had to do it because I had to be where the client was. So, and then weekend work, like I talked about earlier, and then obviously time away from family. So a lot of things to weigh there. So then technology companies in general are a whole different breed of corporate America. So I should have said best benefits. Technology companies have the best retirement and healthcare benefits in the world, hands down. Nobody competes. They are incredible. Like I was telling you earlier about the parental leave policy. I mean, they're like Google, YouTube, Salesforce. I think their policies you can take up to a year. So pretty incredible. Retirement benefits, usually they start at 8 to 10% match and you can negotiate stock options for retirement. Really incredible. Like I was saying earlier, my government job, my match was like 2 or 3%. So it's really a whole life-changing lifestyle change to go work for a technology company. There's also cutting edge information and innovation that you're privy to before it hits the world. So that's really cool to be a part of these things that are having some of them are having positive effects on the world. Like right now, I'm working on a project at IBM where we're using AI and quantum computing to help cure breast cancer. So there's things like that where you work on these projects and you're like, I can't believe I'm involved in this. It's amazing. So I know that might be different at maybe some social media technology companies like Facebook, Twitter, people struggle with, being at those companies due to social media's negative impact on people's lives. But for the most part, I think most of these companies have positive impacts on the world. So you can feel good about the work that you're doing. And then partner programs. At our company, we partner with the Masters, the US Open, and the Super Bowl. So one of the incentives at our company is if you do really well, you can win like tickets in a suite or tickets to the event, which is really cool. I got to go to the Super Bowl last year, which was an unbelievable bucket list experience. But your managers can nominate you to get these tickets to these events because we're the main host or the main sponsor for them. So there's stuff like that at larger companies that are really exciting. And I know many of the companies I've listed here below do similar things. And then Resume Gold, a lot of these companies are very well known. They have really good global sales schools and training programs. So, I mean, I've been at IBM now for 3.5 years, and I've been through 4 different not year long, but like 6 to 8 month long programs of training that I actually put on my resume because the IBM Global Sales School is known as one of the top sales schools in the country. So just things like that to be able to put on your resume are really great if you ever want to leave or go to a new company or get a different job. And then, like I said before, there's just amazing incentives. The incentive plans are ridiculous. They're pretty hard to beat. I don't think there's other types of companies outside of technology that can really beat the incentive plans that are available. And then below, here are some companies that I would urge you to consider that I think have really good corporate policies. They have good business conduct guidelines. They're interested in good behaviors towards the environment and technology and putting good into the world. So that's IBM, that's where I work. Salesforce, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Accenture, Red Hat. These are all companies that the employees themselves write reviews on things like Indeed, Glassdoor, Reddit, and they talk about how great it is to work at the company. So I urge you to consider these types of companies long term. They're very, very great to work for. Okay, we can go to the next one. So the big question really isn't like why you'd want to work for them, because why wouldn't you want to work for one of these companies for a little bit at least? It's how to get a job at one of these companies, because it is hard. So the first thing I would point you to is to the career services offices at the university. They are amazing. And I utilized them starting my sophomore year trying to get internships. And then I got really serious about it like my junior and senior year. And I was there all the time. And I knew my career counselor, Yvonne Visser, by first and last name. I mean, I invited the lady to my wedding because she did so much for me. But she pretty much, and her and I are still in contact to this day. So I urge you to get a relationship with the career services office at the university. They will help interview prep you. They will help get your resume going. They will help you with internships. They will turn you on to opportunities you weren't thinking of. I never thought I was going to go work in government. My career counselor turned me on to it because there's a lot of recruiting out of government jobs that I didn't know existed. So I decided to go do that for a couple of years to get recruited to a bigger company. So I really urge you to go talk with them as soon as possible. It's so important. And use all the resources on campus that are available to you. There are really so many, and they're all free. They're free of charge when you're a student. So I can't stress that enough, because once you're out of college, it's so much harder to get these kind of services. And then be really aggressive and relentless. Don't take no for an answer. I know a story about one kid that went to Carolina. His name's Chase Mizell. I think he was like involved in student council or something like that, but he wanted to work at McKinsey, which is the number one consulting company in the world. And he wanted to work there really bad, but they really only recruit out of Harvard, Penn, Yale, Princeton. and they don't typically look at students from big public state universities. And he started getting on LinkedIn and contacting recruiters. And he would like drive to Charlotte for their recruiting events. He would drive to Atlanta. He drove all over the place. And he eventually, after almost a year and a half as an undergrad, landed himself a role there. And he went in as a consultant right after graduation. And it really is a story of never giving up. Um, and he is I think he's one of the only people from our university that works at McKinsey. And it's a big deal. I mean, that's a top company. Those are people like the president of the United States calls in to consult him on things. So it's a really big deal that he's there. And that just goes to show that you can work anywhere you want to work. You just have to be relentless, and you can't take no for an answer. And you just got to keep trying. And maybe it's that you take a job somewhere else first to get the requisite experience to go then work for the company that you want to work for. And on that note, I would also say, don't be attached to a location. Like if you're dying to go work in Charleston or New York or wherever, be open to going somewhere where they need people and you definitely can get a job, and then eventually proving yourself to be really good and then transferring to that other location where they have an office, or maybe you can work remotely. So I would tack that on to being relentless. Just don't worry about location unless you have something like familial or really important holding you to a location. I would say just go anywhere, because companies really like that. And they value it. So, I think we have a question. Hold on. What do you think makes a good corporate trainer? I'm not sure what you mean, Simone. Could you clarify what you mean? Like a trainer for like a certain class or an internship? I'm not sure what you mean. So I'm gonna let Simone type in her clarification question, and I'm gonna continue here. So finding connections on LinkedIn is also really great. A lot of people kind of cast LinkedIn off a lot, but companies use it a lot for recruiting. I think like over 50% of the people that get jobs are from applying on LinkedIn. So some companies use LinkedIn exclusively. So I would not overlook LinkedIn and having a good profile and connecting with people and messaging them. I think it's a very valuable tool. And then, and I would love for anybody on this call to connect with me on LinkedIn after this as well. Just a side note. And then finally, ask for help. Don't be afraid to. If you don't feel like you're ready for an interview, or your resume might not be up to scuff, or you're just feeling like down in the process of trying to get a job, I would ask as many people as you can for help. And that includes like your parents or your siblings or your friends that already have jobs at companies. Use your network. That's how it works. Okay, we have another question from Trina. Is it really about the university or the experience? Well, that's a really good question, Trina. I'm going to answer this in a few parts. Part one, for some really big, well-known companies like McKinsey's of the world, yes, they only recruit out of Ivy League. But having said that, I think those kind of universities, Ivy League universities, help you get that first job. But then after that, it doesn't matter. It's all about your performance, your experience, and how you are in the field. I'm on a team right now with 10 people, and 2 of them went to Ivy League and they were recruited right out of undergrad. Everybody else on the team went to state schools. I mean, I went to South Carolina, somebody else went to Tennessee, somebody else went to Georgia. Like, we all went to state schools and we went and worked somewhere else first. And guess who are the highest performers on our team? Us, like not the people that went to Ivy League schools. So I don't think it's all about the university long term. I think sometimes they get a competitive advantage for that first job. But other than that, I think University of South Carolina, especially the Moore School where I went, really molds you into the best you can be for these companies. I mean, I had really great training, and my boss says that all the time. So I think it really doesn't matter. I think the experience and your performance means more. Does it matter what college you go to get a high job? Okay, so once again, a lot of it's going to depend on your experience and what degree you have. But yeah, I mean, if you went to Harvard and you're up against somebody from a different school, that's really hard to compete with. But like I said, going back, it's really just for that first job. I don't want to shy you away from that because I really think you can work anywhere you want to work. It's about the person. It's about who you are and your capabilities as a person. It's not about your college. And University of South Carolina has a great reputation in my company. I mean, everybody that's why they have a partnership at the University of South Carolina and an innovation center. So it's not about the college per se. So don't be scared of that. You can get a job anywhere you want to get a job. I'm confident in that. It's just sometimes big companies tend to recruit out of those schools just blindly. So it has nothing to do with whether the candidates there are the best, Okay, so we can go to the next slide. So once you're in, no matter what job you get, these are my like top 4 pieces of advice once you get in and how you can move up quickly. So number 1, get a mentor, like as soon as possible. That is the first thing I would do. It may take you a few weeks, but once you get in and like your head stops spinning and you feel comfortable, you want to have a mentor within the first 6 months of your job. So my advice would be to find somebody that you want to emulate or you think is really good at their job, you respect, maybe they're in a job that you would want someday, and not your manager. It just shouldn't be somebody that you report to every week or every day. It should be somebody outside of your immediate business group. But it should be somebody that you feel like you can confide in and you respect, and you can have serious conversations about your future, and they won't tell anybody, and it's kind of like a confidentiality thing. I know a lot of companies like sometimes will assign you a mentor, and that's great, especially if you like them. But if you don't like them and you don't feel like that's the mentor for you, you should definitely go and pursue a mentor within your company, to have that person to talk to. I have one. She's outside my group completely. I met her at an event, and we've been thick as thieves since. She lives in Texas. I call her and talk to her about everything. So it's made my experience at the larger companies seem smaller, and more like a community. And then, so another thing I would say is for your direct manager, I would have career conversations with them all the time, like be very diligent about it. I would have one once a quarter minimum, so for a year. And I would set an agenda that you would send to your manager before the call, put some time on their calendar, and have, some kind of outline of the discussion you want to have about getting feedback about how you're doing, your career, your goals, short-term, long-term. Those are definitely important. They're very important. I would suggest doing that, and not enough people do that. My first manager at IBM is from the Bronx, and he is a very colorful man. I love him to death. He's like my work dad, but I was the only person that had career conversations with him for a year. And he's like, I've never even heard of this. Why are you doing this? I'm like, I'm going to set these on your calendar every quarter. And he was probably so annoyed, but then he promoted me over everyone else on the team, and I was the youngest person. So just realize that taking criticism, they're giving you feedback, and taking that feedback and taking that criticism, don't take any of it personally. Just take it as an opportunity to be better. And, that was really hard for me when I first came in, because people are so brash and harsh in these environments. And it's really different from my first job, where everybody was kind of like sugar-coated everything, and everything was wonderful and beautiful. And like everybody was so nice and Southern and friendly. Well, this is not the same thing. I mean, there's people from all walks of life and different cultures, and there's language barriers, and everybody's just very direct. So it took me a little while to realize that it wasn't a personal thing. That's just their message delivery. So I would do that, and I would just internalize that it's not personal. They're just trying to help you be better. So that's really important. Um, and then be professional. So being professional has nothing to do with like being courteous on a call. It has everything to do with everything you do at work. So in emails, you're not going to say, hey, dude, or yo, or 30 exclamation points after something, or not doing thank you, or talk to you soon, or sign off. It's everything. It's being on time to meetings, even if they're virtual. Everybody's time is important. I don't care if you're the CEO or a first year seller at the company. Everybody's time is valuable. That's all we have in life. So you just need to be professional in terms of everything that you do at work, in meetings, in emails, being on time, being respectful, listening to other people, not talking over them. One thing, or we'll all go into that in the next thing. The final thing is learning how to work virtually, because this is going to be, I think, indefinitely our future. Like my company, I used to work Monday through Thursday, I was gone. I'd fly to the client no matter where they were in the world. And so now we're realizing we can save a lot of money because we work virtually just fine. So it's really great because you can live where you want to live. I moved back home to Charleston. You can, be in two places at once. You can go to a call in Germany and then go to a call in New York in the same day. You're not away from your family as much, but learning how to work virtually is going to be very important for the success of any person going forward. So some tips I have for that are like, number one, shower. I can't believe how many people show up to meetings and put their videos on and literally look like they just rolled out of bed. That's very unprofessional. Even though it's virtual, you should act like you're in person. Even if you like don't have pants on a virtual call, your top up should be professional. Don't have things going on in the background of your calls. Make sure you're always on video. When you're on video, it means you're in the room. When you're not on video, it's kind of like you're not seen as much. They forget about you. That's how you're in the room now. You're in the room. You can be in every room you want as a first year employee because you can be on video in the room now. So it's really great. It's a great tool. So just make sure that you're showing up professional, you're dressed appropriately, you don't look like a slob, you're not eating during your calls, things like that should be really self-explanatory, but it's kind of shocking to see grown humans on video acting the way they do sometimes, and it's noticed by people from the top. And a lot of the meetings are recorded. So if your meeting's recorded, like that's on video now forever. So they may go like back and watch a big meeting you were in. And if you weren't very professional, they may choose not to promote you or not to put you in a different role. So now it's kind of like, you're not just in person, you're not just giving that in-person impression. It's like your video recordings of how you are as an employee are now logged and archived with this virtual work environment. So just please keep that in mind going forward, as this is the future. So even if you don't, want to get completely ready or put on a full face of makeup or whatever, just, get your hair out of your face. And if you're a girl or a guy, if you have long hair, and, kind of dress conservatively or on brand. Like I always wear a blazer with an IBM shirt because when I'm talking to clients, I just feel like it comes across professional, and it's really the technology company thing. Everybody wears t-shirts with a blazer. I really don't know why, but that's our required uniform. And I think just like also being on video makes you feel like you're more engaged and you pay attention better, and people notice that. So it feels like you're having a conversation and you're not just alone at your house all day. Okay, great question, Laura. Laura says, what are your suggestions for repositioning government work experience for the corporate world? Well, number one, corporations love people that work at government entities because government entities are protocol driven. So there's a lot of rules and there's a lot of guidelines and a lot of things you can't do and rules you have to follow. And corporations love that because you have that discipline. So when you go transfer to the corporation, you very easily, even though they're less restrictive, you easily can follow business conduct guidelines and protocols. And corporations love that. HR departments actually look for people in government jobs when they're going through resumes, because they know that they're already trained to follow these rules. And, there are a lot of liabilities in corporate America. So it's really good when you have somebody that's coming from a place where all they worry about is liability in government. So I would say I would get it depends on what government work you're in. So I worked at the Department of Commerce. So we were working with companies all the time. My job was literally to bring companies into the United States. So I actually did a deal with an IBMer who they were doing all the networking and all the capabilities around AI and cloud for, I'll just tell you the client, it was Samsung in Newberry. IBM was kind of circuiting and doing everything for that manufacturing facility with Samsung. And I met this guy and he liked me a lot, and we worked on the project for over a year together. And then he offered me a job at IBM when it was over. So that's how I got my job. We're literally working for government's how I got my job. But it really depends on what kind of work you're in. With commerce, it was different because I was always with companies all the time. That's what we did. All we did was work with major corporations. I know there are other, agricultural companies, for example. You could probably easily get a job at like Kraft Foods and places like that if you're working for Department of Agriculture. There's things that really translate well, but I would reach out to recruiters that you find on LinkedIn and tell them about your experience and that you want to transition into their company or a similar company, and how to make yourself look good online. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll give this suggestion, and it works really well. I will tell people to go find the recruiters for the companies on LinkedIn, message their resume and the link to the job they're interested in, say, I want to know if my skills match this job. I'm reading like they do, but sometimes online job descriptions all seem the same. Can you give me your advice? Most of the time, recruiters will get right back to you about it, because that's their job. Their job is to place highly talented and skilled people into these roles. So they're going to talk to you. They're going to respond. So recruiters are your friend. I would make sure whatever government experience you have is somehow linked, or you can tell a story to link it to the company or the job that you want. So definitely the message and the delivery of that message from your government experience to the new job you want is super important. So think about that link, and contact a recruiter or somebody that you know at the company that can facilitate a conversation. Okay, Trina. Are there any forums or programs in South Carolina for high school students involving working for the government in the future? I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are. I know, for example, Boeing has one in North Charleston through Stall High School, where they will come in and they will pay for juniors and seniors to go to like welding school, engineering school, whatever, at night at Trident Technical College, and they'll pay for their education. And then when they get out, they're like 19 because they've graduated college and they have a tech degree, and they go and work for Boeing right away. And they have to work there for they sign a contract for like 5 or 10 years. But I know there's companies that do things like that. But I will tell you, a lot of those programs do not go and pay for like 4-year degrees. They're usually going to pay for like a technical training for a skill that they need, like welding or engineering or architecture or whatever it may be. But it's a really good alternative. Not everybody needs to go to a 4-year, college. So it's, a great alternative. I know Nephron has a partnership with the UofSC's pharmacy school, where they have interns from our pharmacy school go and work there in the summers, and then they train them up to hire them right out of pharmacy school. So there's a lot of programs like that at University of South Carolina, I know. In high schools, I don't know if they're like linked to 4-year universities or not. I would go on the Department of Commerce website, actually. I feel like that would be on there for South Carolina, at least. And then, okay. Oh, okay. Well, thank you, JoJo. Okay, so we can move on, Haven, to the next slide. Okay, so once you're in the company, like I said, this all kind of goes in line with professionalism, but all 6 things in this blue box right up here, that's kind of like what you're trying to get to. You want all of those things. You want trust, confidence in yourself. You want to be able to add value. You want to be clear about your intentions. You want to have networking skills. You want opportunities to come to you. You don't want to always be searching for opportunities. You want people to come to you. Oh, there's this new role opening. I think you'd be great for it. And you want to have good decision-making skills. No hesitation. So those are kind of like the goals of your personal brand, I would say. That's kind of the mold of where you want to try to get to. But there's a lot of things that go into your personal brand. It's not how you look. It's not your looks or just getting a professional headshot on your LinkedIn profile. Although you should have a professional photo on your LinkedIn profile, or at least, a professional headshot that you got for free at a career fair or something like that. And I know they do them at the Moore School, even if you're not in the Moore School. So check out their website. They are free if you're in college. But there's a lot of things that go into it. So your email etiquette, very important. Okay. Especially in the working environment, in the virtual working environment, email etiquette is really important, professionally. So if you're talking to a client, or you're talking to a senior vice president, who are you talking to? That's like the number one thing to realize with email etiquette. And the lawyer in me wants to tell all of you, anything you put in an email is there for life. So if you're heated about something or passionate about something, I always have a 24-hour rule. I will type out an email with nobody in the to section and I'll save it as a draft. The next day I'll go back and I'll reply, but I'll edit it and take out all my passionate, heated sentiments. But that's a big thing. Anything that you ever put in email is there for life. So just remember that. Same with social media posts. I know 2 people who have been fired for social media posts. Social media posts are like so toxic to your professional career if they're anything controversial. I don't mean like posting things that you believe in, that's fine. I just mean like hateful speech, or like something super negative and cruel or mean, or I mean things like that, like disrespectful to people of different genders or races. Like that is clearly unacceptable. And people get fired every day for those things. And, we're all humans, and in virtual working environments, humanity is really important. And I cannot stress enough, your social platforms and your email etiquette and everything that's in writing for life, it reflects who you are and your character. And that's why I don't have Facebook. I don't have Twitter. I have a professional brand on LinkedIn, and then I have a private Instagram account that I share with my family and friends, that I don't let anybody from work follow me on. So just remember those things. Like LinkedIn is my social media. That is my platform for work. I let anybody follow me. I connect with people on work. That's my platform. And I keep it on brand. So what that means is, well, let me finish this and then I'll go back to the brand thing. So social media, email, how you talk to people on the phone, and Zoom calls, performance results. That's a part of your brand. Are you reliable? Can you meet your numbers every month? Or can you get the marketing campaign through on time? Can you get, what they ask you to get done in time? Like that shows a lot about who you are, and like keeping your word and keeping your promises and deadlines and things like that. So performance goes into your brand, keeping your word. I'll go into not posting off brand below, but in a nutshell, it's your markability as a professional. So the question about your brand is like, are you promotable? Do they trust you? Do you add value? Are you clear in your intentions? Like all of these things in the blue box is what people are going to ask about you as an employee. And it all boils down to one question, like, are you promotable? Like, do we see you at this company long term? Do we want you here? That's the question that you need to be able to like make sure, leave no doubt you're already answering. So, and then let's go into being like off brand. Some things you can do to promote yourself as a brand are, audit your online presence. So go and clean up all your platforms. Maybe you realize you don't even use a platform and you want to delete it. What groups are you in on your platforms? What does that say about you? Are you in like a hateful group that's like mean to people, or like, just thinking all of those things, like go audit yourself online, be a third party observer, maybe go use your friends' accounts and look at yourself online and grade yourself. Is this a person I would want to hire? I think that's great advice. Or even better, ask your friends to grade you. Oh, I don't know about this or that. You know, all different people, different types of personalities. I would ask them to grade you and kind of reflect on your online presence. And then know your audience. Like, if you're going to let people from work follow you on Instagram, probably shouldn't be posting pictures of you with beer bongs on the weekend. So it's know who's following you on your account. That's really important. Don't just let anybody follow you. That's, you know, if that's going to be your LinkedIn and you want any and everybody professionally to follow you because you want opportunities, that's one thing. But don't just like leave your accounts open for, you know, the windfall of whoever and whenever can send you messages and follow you. That can be, number one, dangerous. And I think number two, like, put your brand all over the place. Make sure you're like looking and auditing and realizing who's following what you're doing. Create valuable content and work product. So not only at work, but whatever you're posting, make sure it's on brand, not off brand. Like I was saying earlier, like I do a lot of posts about University of South Carolina and the wonderful things that we're doing there because I'm on the Alumni Council. And I'm proud of the work that the university does, especially the Alumni Association and Gamecock Club. So I post about it because I want people, my followers that went to the school and who didn't go to the school, to know about all the wonderful things we're doing. I post about my company. I post about other technology advancements. I post about Forbes just ranked us top 3 company to work for in the world. Posted about that. I post things that are like on my brand. I'm not going to go and post like for me, I'm not going to go and post like a political thing on my LinkedIn about who to vote for president or whatever, because that's not my brand. I don't work in politics. I'm not a lobbyist. And I don't know if that's going to set somebody off that holds my promotion for the next year. If you believe really strongly in that, or you're working for a campaign, or you're a political science major, or you're trying to get a job in a campaign, that's totally on brand. You should totally post that. So it just really matters about what your job is and what your goals are and what you want to be seen as. So, you know, you just have to keep all of these things in mind and think it's a long-term marathon and not the short term. It may feel good to post that day, but then you're like, why did I do that later? So, don't be trigger happy on the posting. Okay. And then going along with that, just be really purposeful in what you share, knowing that what you're sharing not only adds value, but like it's for a purpose. And, you know, it's something that you care about, or it's something that you think needs to be shared. And then associate yourself with other strong brands. You know, the university is a great brand. Your company, whatever that may be, or maybe you follow, you know, Sarah Blakely. I love her. She's the CEO of Spanx. I think she's an incredible businesswoman. Sometimes she'll post articles or blogs that she's written, and I'm very proponent of women in the workplace and in corporate America and promoting women. So sometimes I'll repost what Sarah Blakely posts because I think she's incredible. So she's a brand that I associate myself with a lot. And then finally, just be yourself and be authentic. So like I was saying before, yeah, there are companies and places where maybe if you post something political, everyone's, oh, it's controversial and uproar. But then once again, the flip side of that is maybe you're a lobbyist. Maybe you work for the DCCC or the GOP, or maybe you're trying to get a job working on a campaign when you graduate and you're a page at the State House, and that's really you. And that's what you want to talk about and like create this persona for yourself around politics. Well, that's great. That's exactly the stuff. Your opinions should be what you're posting. So these are all things to consider. And I know it's a lot, but the first thing I would do all over on your brand is audit your online presence, because that's the only thing people are looking at right now since everything's virtual. And I would just take stock of that and go from there. One final thing I want to say about emails, because I see this all the time, like improper grammar, improper punctuation, run-on sentences, no signature line. You should always have a signature line with your name, your title, your email, and your phone number. I even have my LinkedIn link below that. The reason that you should have those things is if I'm on my phone looking at an email that's confusing that you sent and I want to contact you about it over the phone, but I don't have your contact because I'm not on my internal computer login, it's really easy just to click that call button to get back to them. And some people, like, their companies are really strict about who can reply back to emails. If it's like a protected security privacy thing, data leaks, whatever, you have to like reply and type in the email address. So that's another thing in technology companies that gets really annoying. So signature lines become really important. But having proper punctuation and grammar is also important. And nothing drives me crazier when the guy from my team on Harvard sends a run-on sentence with ... ellipses. I'm like, did you not go to Harvard? Like, let's complete the sentence. So just realize that your email could be forwarded and you want to, forward it to somebody else, and then somebody else. And then before you know it, 30 people have seen your email. Just make sure you're putting yourself the best foot forward of what you want people to see of how you email and how you talk and come across. Trina, I want to major in political science and go to law school after. I've heard that a political science degree isn't worth it. To apply to law school, I'll need a bachelor's degree. Do you have any advice on what I should major in? While in law school, can I use that degree to work while in school? Lots of questions. One, I went to law school at South Carolina. There were a lot of political science majors. There were a lot of English majors. I was a business major. I loved the Moore School. I always kind of knew I was going to go into like corporate something. I didn't know what, but I love like project-based activities, and like now I run a P&L, a profit and loss balance sheet. Like, so I needed finance, I needed economics. Ultimately my long-term goal is to be a CEO. So I knew I needed to major in business or economics or finance. I don't think it matters what you go major in. I think you should major in something you're definitely interested in and want to talk about all the time, because that's 4 years of your life. And a lot of my friends had completely different majors. Like, one of my friends was a fashion major, and now she works for Lululemon corporate, and she's a lawyer. So really cool. My other really good friend from law school is an English major. I was business. Some of my good guy friends were economics, poli-sci, history, lots of history majors. One major I would really point to that I think is super cool for lawyers, which there were like 5 or 6 in our whole class of 200, is a science major, like a biomedical engineering, biology, just science, chemistry of some sort. Because if you're a science major, then you get all the prerequisites to go take your patent law bar after law school, which, if you know this, or you may not know this, but less than 1% of attorneys in the entire world are patent lawyers. And you can practice in front of the US Copyright and Trade Commission and patents, and they make the most money of all lawyers in the world, but you have to have a science degree, because a lot of the patents are like that you're going to be coding and working on for clients are science related. So there's all these classes. I would really look into that. Patent attorneys, that's probably what I would have done looking back if I didn't known that. But I would have had to gone back to school and get 8 science classes to go take the patent bar. So that's one thing I would turn you on to, just to research. You may not be interested in it, but it's a really cool. I have one friend that did it who's a patent lawyer. He lives in New York, and he just has like a really cool life, and he gets to see all the inventions before they come out, which is really cool. So if you're interested in that at all, look into it. But other than that, no, it doesn't matter about your degree. It matters about how well you did, like your grades, your LSAT score, and those things. So yeah, just major in something you're interested in, or, look into the science one if you're interested in patent law. It's really cool. And then, while I'm in law school, can I use that degree to work? A lot of people work in law school. I mean, you cannot work your first year. You have to sign something that says you will not work, because the course load is like unbelievably hard. Your first year is the worst year by far. If you can make it through that, you will graduate law school. So just to give you a heads up on that, it's about 300 to 400 pages of reading per night. So I don't know how you'd work, because you're in class from about 7:30 in the morning to about 5:30 in the afternoon. You go and take about an hour off, and then you're reading till about midnight. So I don't know when you'd work, but weekends are really for like catch up. And then your whole first year is pretty much like that. My second and third year, I worked at a law firm both summers, and I made money. And then during the school year, I babysat and I dog walked. I did like any odd job because I needed a flexible schedule because my class schedule, I had morning classes and I had night classes. So I did like a lot of odd jobs to make money, but I didn't want to take living loans out because I already had to take some tuition loans. So I like made a budget for myself that I'd need about $200 a week to like my rent I think was like $500 a month, and then like food and whatever. So I would just whatever to make ends meet. I babysat a lot, and I would just honestly I just emailed all the law school professors and I was like, who has kids, who needs babysitters and dog sitters and whatever. That's how I made all my money. So it was just easy work because law school is really mentally draining. So I didn't want to really want to go do something like super intense. In the summers I did because I wasn't in school, but during the school year, you'll find it's a very difficult, grueling process. But a lot of people work. So yeah, you can totally work. Okay, next slide. I think it's the end. So if there are any other questions, let me know.
I'll give you guys about 1 more minute to type in any more questions you might have for Molly. But thanks so much, Molly. That was very informative, both for corporate America and just some professionalism tips in general. So I know that everybody who is listening will be able to take those and implement them into their lives to better prepare for their next internship or career move. And it looks like we got through all of the questions. So I want to thank everyone for joining us today. If you all liked this event, we will be sending out a survey, email, and a recording of it. If there's anything you want to go back to, if you want to join us for more events, you can check out our events page, uofscalumni.org/events. It looks like maybe there's one more question, Molly.
So Trina's question is, after all the studying and tuition, does working law eventually pay off? Well, it really depends on what you want to do long-term, what your goals are. Yes, it paid off 100% for me. My parents did not pay for my law school. So, I had to work hard to get some scholarships, and, I'll probably pay off my loans next year. So I'll be 31 next year. So not too bad, about 6 years after I graduated. But I do have friends that are gonna be paying them off probably until their 50s. Because they didn't have scholarships or whatever. So, it's a balancing thing. I would weigh, the cost and figure out what the payback's going to be. And it depends on what your salary is going to be after too, because, that depends on how much you can pay back and how quickly. School debt is no small thing. All I can say is, price it out for yourself and figure out how much debt you're willing to take on. Mine has been worth it, yes, but I know a lot of people who, would have gone and worked somewhere for a company that would have paid for their MBA instead. So you just have to figure out really what you want to do. And, I don't even practice law anymore. But it got me to where I am. So I don't know. It really is something that you have to weigh for yourself and figure out if the money is going to be worth it.
Great. Well, thank you so much for all your advice, Molly. We really appreciate your time today. And I hope everyone enjoyed today's event and you all have a wonderful rest of your afternoon. Thank you.
Thanks, Haven. Thanks, everyone.